Good afternoon. Welcome to the Coastside Fire Protection District Board of Directors, a regular board meeting, October 23rd, 2024. Roll call, please, Gene.
Director Cockrell.
Here.
Director Hannah.
Present.
Director McKinney.
Here.
Director Cheryl. Here. President Berg.
Here. Is there any member, pledge of allegiance, please join me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there any member of the public who would like to make a public comment at this time? Hearing none, I'll close the public comment period and move to the consent calendar. Note that Director McKinney is asked to be recused from the consent calendar. We'll have a motion to approve the consent calendar. So moved. Do I have a second? Moved and second. Roll call, please, Gene.
Director Cockrell.
Yes.
Director Hannah.
Yes.
Director Cheryl. Yes. President Berg.
Yes.
Motion passes 401 recused.
Moving on to item 6, continuing business. Recognize Coastside volunteer firefighter Jeremy Schmidt and Lucas Woodbridge for successful completion of paramedic training program. Chief Cox.
Thank you. And if I could have Lucas and Jeremy come stand up front and we can embarrass them.
Excellent. So it feels like.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Just want to give you background on this. In February 2023, the Coastside Fire Protection District made an investment in the future of its emergency medical services by sponsoring 2 Coastside volunteer firefighters, Jeremy Schmidt and Lucas Woodbridge, to attend a rigorous paramedic training course. The paramedic certification is essential for providing advanced life support, saving interventions during medical emergencies. Both were successful in completing the program. Volunteer firefighter Schmidt and volunteer firefighter Woodbridge demonstrated exceptional dedication, perseverance, and a strong commitment to their professional development throughout the intensive training program. They successfully completed both classroom and clinical components, showcasing their mastery of the advanced skills and knowledge required to become a paramedic. The successful completion of the paramedic training program has opened new doors for Schmidt and Woodbridge. Both volunteer firefighters have secured employment offers with CAL FIRE in the San Mateo Santa Cruz unit as fire apparatus engineer paramedics. This career advancement not only validates their hard work and talent, but also positions them to make a significant impact on the lives of countless individuals throughout the Coastside in their new roles. The district's decision to sponsor Schmidt and Woodbridge for the paramedic training program was a groundbreaking initiative. It set a precedence for future opportunities for local volunteer firefighters to pursue advanced training and career advancement throughout the district. The successful completion of the program by Schmidt and Woodbridge reflects positively on the district's commitment to supporting its volunteer firefighters and investing in the development of its emergency medical services. Their achievements serve as an inspiration for other volunteer firefighters, demonstrating the potential for growth and professional development within the organization. Their dedication, hard work, and commitment to the district are commendable and serve as an inspiration for other volunteer firefighters. By recognizing their accomplishment, the district can publicly acknowledge their contributions to the organization and inspire others to strive for excellence.
Jeremy and Lucas, on behalf of the board of directors, we'd like to compliment you for your outstanding achievement. When this suggested deviation as far as getting paramedics was brought before this board, it was somewhat controversial as to how it should proceed. You have proven that it was the right move, and we congratulate you for your great effort and look forward to your long service in the CAL FIRE program. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
You know, I thought they were going to go to all parents. I'm kind of surprised.
But thank you for the opportunity.
Cool. Can we take a quick photo with all the board from the
Sure.
screen here with you guys?
Good. They want the board?
Please. We can come up too. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey.
Thanks,
We all fit?
Just watch your step.
Yeah, 3-1.
You gotta.
So you got a picture.
Yeah. I'm sitting behind.
Yeah, can you lay down?
I'm thinking right now, we're not gonna make sure.
1, 2, 3, I'm gonna take a couple. All right.
Thank you. Congrats, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice done. Thank you.
That's the most important job about done tonight. He's still there.
Sponsored by some speeding maker.
Scary if you want to be black. Yeah. What about
Moving on, we'll move, with your permission, board members, we're gonna do things a little bit out of order. We'll move to new business tab 4. Presentation by San Mateo County Local Air Formation Commission, LAFCO, regarding the Coastside Fire Protection District Municipal Service Review. Chief Cox?
Thank you. The staff report is in front of you. You'll notice a letter we received from LAFCO regarding a municipal service review as well as a sphere of influence review. To present this, we invited Executive Director Rob Bartoli from LAFCO, and he will be presenting.
Welcome, Rob.
So thank you, President
The
Burke,
stage is yours.
directors, thank you, district staff. My name is Rob Bartoli. I'm the executive officer for the San Mateo Local Agency Formation Commission, or LAFCO. I have a brief presentation tonight. I don't know, or this afternoon. I don't know if you want me to. If it's easier for you to just tab or me to.
Sure, I can click for you. That's
Okay,
fine.
yeah. Otherwise, then I think if I'm standing there in
Yeah,
front of the
yeah,
monitor, if you want to see it. So I'm here tonight, or here this afternoon, to discuss what LAFCO is, and then a report that LAFCO is working on Coastside Fire. So on the next slide, I'd like to just give a little bit of background about LAFCO, and I can tell.
There you go.
So LAFCO is the Local Agency Formation Commission, which is a public agency that's in each county that's established by state laws, Cortese, Knox, Pittsburgh Local Government Act. And that law and LAFCO really looks at the primary purposes of regulating boundaries of cities and special districts. And LAFCO adopts something called spheres of influence, which I'll talk about. And we do conduct special studies called municipal service review, which I'll also talk about. And LAFCO has, in San Mateo County, LAFCO has jurisdiction over boundaries and governance for the 20 cities and 55 special districts that are in San Mateo County. As I had mentioned, we do prepare something called municipal service reviews for both cities and for districts in the context of state law and state policies that look at local boundaries, provisions of delivery services, and the elimination of overlapping service delivery patterns. We also then review whether they be changes for boundaries, such as annexations, or in the case of how Coastside Fire was created, a consolidation of 2 districts, or governance changes, depending on what those are. And LAFCO is independent from local, county, and state government. And the commission is comprised of 2 county board of supervisors, 2 city council members, 2 special district members, a member of the public, and then alternates for each of those types of positions. So on the next slide, what LAFCO is conducting now is part of our regular work plan. We conduct something called a municipal service review, or an MSR, as it's commonly referred to. As part of the work plan for this year, Coastside Fire is one of the agencies that's under review. We've conducted a number of other MSRs though this year, including one for the city of Millbrae, Foster City. And we're currently working on one for the Harbor District, and Coastside Fire will be one of our next agencies. And there's a number of areas that those studies take a look at, including the governance structure of an agency, the fiscal health of that entity, how services are provided by that agency as well. And similar to a grand jury report, the recommendations and determinations that are in an MSR are non-binding. However, either the commission or a district or another entity could take those recommendations, depending on what those are, and act on them, whether that's through an application because we're suggesting a boundary change in the future, or governance change, depending on what that is. And an MSR is a prerequisite to something called a sphere of influence. And on the next slide, we talk about what that sphere of influence actually means. And so that is kind of the probable area of what an agency's planning boundaries could be. And we're really talking about, I think in the fire service particularly, when you have unincorporated area around you, in the sense of that there are corporate physical boundaries of a governance entity like Coast County Fire. And then there is the response area, which might be different. And so we'll talk about that. But we're talking about the sphere of influence for what the actual corporate boundaries are for an entity, and then what that future area outside of that entity could be. It might be later that area needs service, like a city. So if you have an unincorporated area of land, it might be developed because it needs water and sewer from that city. In the future, we would encourage that city to think about how that land is going to be developed, how that can be planned for when they're looking at documents. Similar for districts, if an area that could receive service in the future because there's a need for it, whether it's fire protection, because sewer is going to be extended into that area, it's really looked at as a planning document for the future. And so the sphere of influence, let's call it SOI in LAFCO parlance. And that municipal service review that LAFCO conducts informs what that sphere of influence could be, because it looks at how an agency could provide services into additional areas, or if they're already providing those services into those additional areas, whether the agency has the capacity to expand its services beyond its current level and serve new entities and new areas. And there's several different types of spheres of influence. So if you have an expansive one, that means there's territory within your sphere of influence, being either there's unincorporated area if you're a city, or it could be unincorporated, it can be unincorporated area or city area in a case of a district. There's coterminous, meaning your boundaries are exact, so and your sphere of influence are exactly the same. Or there's dissolution in zero, and then LAFCO's made the determination that that agency service should really be provided by another entity. And that could be changed through an annexation to a city for some cases, or an annexation to another district. On the next slide, I'll talk about a little bit about Coastside Fire Protection District. Now, I'm sure you are very well versed in the history of this district and the district before, but just for some context. So the Half Moon Bay Fire Protection District, which was established originally in the late 1800s, formed as an actual district in 1923, and then reorganized into its entity in 1965. And then the Point Montara Fire Protection District, which was formed in 1954. In the late 90s, there was an agreement for the Half Moon Bay Fire Protection District to provide service to Point Montara Fire. And then in 2006, those two districts submitted an application to LAFCO for the consolidation, which was then approved in 2007. And then entity of Coastside Fire Protection District was formed through that consolidation of those districts. On the next slide, there's a picture of the existing, what was the old boundaries. In blue is Point Montara, in red is Half Moon Bay. And at that time, that sphere of influence was just the service boundaries of the area. On the next slide, it's just a continuation of that map. So now you have, here's the new Coastside Fire Protection District that was formed again in 2007. And right now, its boundaries are coterminous with its sphere of influence. There's no, for LAFCO purposes, there's no outside area that's foreseen at this time to be included within district boundaries. And the boundaries right now are approximately 30 square miles or so. We, as part of it, the report on the next slide, we can talk about what the information requests that LAFCO staff submitted to Coastside Fire Protection staff. And this is because as part of our work plan, we have been looking at agencies that we have not done reviews on in recent times. The last MSR that we did was in 2006, before the consolidation on the two entities, on Half Moon Bay Fire and Point Montara. But we have not done an MSR since consolidation. We haven't done an MSR on actual Coastside Fire. And so we are now looking at, you know, how is the agency functioning, what services are providing, particularly because of the long change that has gone through what mobile services it provides now. And then also looking at whether or not there are other functions that could be provided by the district in other areas. So the district's website, I want to commend district staff and the board. It's been very helpful to pull publicly available documents as part of our research. I think in the staff report today from staff, there's a copy of a list of questions the LAFCO staff submitted. lots of those times, those are information that maybe we can't find online, or it's asking an opinion or some detailed information of staff about what's the situation like, have you investigated this? So that's what those questions are. But a lot of the information that we look at to kind of start our reports is available online, which is always a good thing for transparency and for the public. And so some of the questions that we're looking at in regards to this, the request for information, is that question of service area versus, again, district boundaries, corporate boundaries of the entity, whether those are the same, whether Coastside Fire is the first response agency into areas that are not necessarily in the district, whether that's something the district has explored potentially changing, whether that's through an annexation or something like that, to put into the district boundaries and say out of county fire. So that's one of the questions that we're looking at and want to understand a little bit more. The relationship with other entities, whether that be other fire agencies, that be the water providers within the district boundaries, the harbor district, because I know that's been an ongoing conversation about search and rescue functions that are out there. Looking at finance questions and better understanding excess ERAF, because that has been a concern for a lot of districts and how those funds are utilized. Looking at funding for capital projects, and then long-term planning documents, which I know there's an item on today's agenda, looking at the business plan, but if there's capital improvement plans or asset management plans that the district has, and understanding those. And so the last slide that I have here is that it will be available. When the draft report is complete, we'll share a copy with staff versus an administrative draft, so we make sure that we have all our details correct. And then there'll be a public draft that will go to the commission, to the LAFCO commission, and which we'll also share with the district. And I'm happy to come back and present or ask, respond to questions on that when we have it. That draft is tentatively scheduled for our first meeting in January of 2025. But we'll have more information about that, and we'll obviously let the district know when we'll have that report ready. But we'll continue to work with district staff though on an information request. And when we have those draft documents, we'll be able to share that with Coastside Fire. So right now, I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any of me. Otherwise,
Board of Directors?
presentation.
Comments, questions?
Your question list is extensive. Is it the same question list for every agency?
It depends. So sometimes we have more, again, I think one of the things I do want to commend the district is they do have a lot of, your financials are up on their website, your audits are up there. A lot of your business plans are up there, so I'm able to kind of look at those documents and drill down to specific questions instead of more generalized ones. So it really just depends. The ERAF, the excess ERAF question is one that I ask of almost every entity, because it's always something that is a potential thing that could go away, especially for special districts. We saw legislation a couple of years ago when the state almost zeroed out ERAF for special districts. So understanding how those are used, and then the question of the service area related to the district boundaries, I think, is one that's particularly unique to the fire service and to the emergency response, particularly when you have areas that, as a layperson, that don't seem to lend themselves to be directly responded to by county fire. And we have seen the situation on Bayside communities where there are unincorporated areas that are within county fire response, but county fire is not the first response agency. Lots of times those are city fire departments that are responding to those. So that's an interesting question to LAFCO about whether or not, in the case of fire districts, should those boundaries be changed? Is that something the district has pursued or thought about? So there are some unique questions to Coastside Fire, but there are some more general questions too.
We had a situation where because we are contracted with CAL FIRE, that many of our CFP firefighters are also county firefighters. So there isn't a district distinction between the two. It's the same units and the same personnel responding.
That's true. And where LAFCO would ask a question about is then the funding of those responses. Because the pots of funding for Coastside Fire and County Fire are two different entities and two different functions. So that would be a question of maybe there isn't a need to change for that reason. Maybe there is a change that could be explored, and what would be the benefit or what would be the downsides of those changes. But that would be something that would be interest of the LAFCO to understand it. Oh, but there's a staffing component that doesn't change that response, particular issue on the response. Is there another issue that should be looking at? This kind of we explore this question. You know, when the consolidation happened in 2007, it really was more or less focused on just the two entities and not changing any of the exterior boundaries at that time. So now that I think that that question has largely been addressed in the consolidation process, now we're kind of asking, are there some other areas that we should be looking at? Or again, has the district already explored those areas, and they can inform our decision on what something should be.
Do you also look at county response in other districts? Is the juxtaposition between what you're defining as Coastside Fire Protection District and then the county, is that a common comparison?
When we have areas that include response areas from county fire, like when we do a city municipal service review. So we did a service review for the city of Burlingame, for the city of South San Francisco, which have county fire responsibility areas in them. We've asked, as part of those reviews in past years, we've asked for information from those city fire agencies and from county fire. Who is the responding agency? How often do you do this? You know, what's your volume of calls? Is county fire responding into those areas at all, or is it really just a city or a Citrus County Fire for the JPA? Are those the agencies that are responding? So that when we do have those types of questions, that is a common question that we ask about responding to those county areas.
When this starts in January, defensively, what will our involvement be, if any, and how long will it continue forward through?
So the typical process is that we bring the draft version of the municipal service review, to the LAFCO commission at one meeting. We then have a comment period, and we meet every other month in the odd number months, or our next meeting after January, that would be March. We typically would have a comment period kind of through the month of February. Again, I would be happy to come present that draft report to this body if so wished. To kind of talk about what those determinations are, recommendations, and what we found. Certainly, we would provide a copy to staff, and whether or not we do a presentation, we want to have feedback, hopefully from the agencies or from the public on the report. We'll consider those comments, bring them into the report or address them in some ways, and then we would have a final version of that report, typically at our second meeting. So they'd be in that case in March, where we'd be adopting. So, and again, the recommendations, and even if there was a spirit of influence change, are really planning documents in the sense of that they're not required in any which way. A spirit of influence change from LAFCO does not impact how services are being provided in the area currently. So it continue on just as it's under current conditions, whatever those current conditions may be. But it allows for, if there was to be a change in some which way, that it would be aligned then with that spirit of influence, so that change could occur. So there could be changes, there could not be changes. It always depends kind of on information that we gather back through our reporting. But the district will have ample opportunity to have its input on the report, and certainly we value that feedback directly from the district and from them to the public. They're being affected.
Right, because you kind of mentioned that it's similar to a grand jury in the sense that it's not binding, but it's still going to be public. Therefore, if another entity or even individual wanted to address something, it would be so forth.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, it's a public document. The draft's a public document. So if the public have questions, or the district has a question about something, that's why we try to have that discussion now and understand kind of what that.
So during the process, though, we'll have some, I guess, input availability to then.
Yes.
Not foreseeing anything dramatic, right? But
And our meetings are public, so we'll always we'll notice the district of what our meetings are. So if either district board members want to attend or staff wants to attend in the district, they're more than welcome to do so.
where are the meetings?
At the Board of Supervisors chambers in Redwood City.
Sounds low.
Yeah.
So, a citizen within the district who relies on us. How is this MSR going to improve my life?
Great question. So it could be a couple things. One is that the MSR could highlight a lot of the work the district is already doing. So it has, maybe as a member of the public, you have now a better understanding of what Coastside Fire does. We always like to see MSRs as a chance for an agency to kind of tell its story, whether about how it is able to provide service in its areas, the acts that it does, how it can be transparent with the public. But it also can help inform members of the public about areas that maybe there's a question. Maybe there is a way to do something a little bit different. And that's what kind of those recommendations are. It also can involve the public by having them be part of this process. Because it is a public process. So if you are a member of the public, you're encouraged to then, provide comments to LAFCO, to engage in the LAFCO process about that discussion. And it also helps them, kind of understand what the future of the district might be. Because it could be whether that district is expanding, whether there's challenges within that district, maybe they can see themselves as a solution and being engaged with the district or the agency to help towards those solutions and face those challenges. So there's a variety of potential benefits of being involved as a member of the public.
So then I'll ask the question from the other side, that as a person who lives in the district, if we totally reject the MSR and say, nothing to do with that, how's this going to do?
Well, it'd be a question of whether you're a member of the public or a member of this body. But
Public,
yeah, for a member of the public, again, if you are not paying attention to the MSR, LAFCO, I do understand LAFCO does fly below the radar for most people. It's not Coastside Fire. It is not a city. It's not something that people interact with on a day-to-day basis, but it does kind of provide a good forum to have these kind of long-term discussions about the health of an agency and where those residents want to see their agency be, whether that be a fire or city agency that they want to be a part of. And so hopefully engaging with the LAFCO process and understanding that is, hey, the fire district wants to do X, Y, Z. Now they're coming to LAFCO. I don't understand why this is. Well, hopefully by engaging in the LAFCO process with the MSR, they can understand maybe why that action is being taken.
do you find it curious that we've been together now for 17 years? And it seems to be working just fine. In fact, all the metrics I look at, it's like, that's what we set out to do, we're doing it well. And so I'm not sure I understand. I see a lot of work involved in this. But at the end, I'm not seeing how this either helps or hurts anybody who lives within the district.
But I guess the question then is whether or not, if a member of the public has a question with the MSR, they can always talk to LAFCO staff about that and kind of what our mandate is. And we're really looking at how we're addressing effective delivery of services, whether or not there should be boundary changes, whether or not those services are being provided in the most fiscally being supported by the fiscal funds that are from that district entity. So if you are a member of the public and you have questions about why are we doing the MSR process, one is that it's a state mandate. We're required by state law to kind of conduct these studies on special districts and cities within the county. But it also can be a tool and a resource for if there ever was change, if there ever is information that needs to be gathered on a district, on an entity, on how they can provide other information and maybe bring that together. One of the things that LAFCO does lots of times is we look at these because we have the time to kind of think about these questions, is whether or not, the fire district has existed in its current configuration since 2007. LAFCO can kind of look at, is that the most efficient way? Is there another way that could be looked at to provide those services, whether that be through changes in staffing, whether that be through changes in boundaries? We can ask those kind of questions. Whether or not the district wants to move forward with those, again, they're non-binding, it's perfectly fine. But it does have an opportunity to think about those questions in different ways and engage with that process if there was to ever be a change. It allows for that.
So after 17 years now, we're gonna have a look at what we do.
If I may, is there anything that instigates, I mean, like, Director Cockrell was saying it's been 17 years, so.
Yeah.
Is there a timetable? Is there a reason why now versus 5 years ago?
So state law says every 5 years or as needed. And so we have been working on kind of this as needed basis for the last couple of years. And we've been really trying to put together a work plan that the LAFCO Commission has adopted to have a more regular review of agencies. Because 17 years, I would say, is a long time to go between municipal service reviews for LAFCO purposes. And we haven't had a chance to look at really the newly, in the LAFCO viewpoint, for the newly formed Coastside Fire Protection District. We did an MSR, but on 2 entities that no longer exist. And in a context that was very different. So I think it's really, in this case for Coastside Fire, it really could show what the changes have been. I think a lot of those changes probably have been positive in lots of ways. And then that helps kind of tell the story of the agency when we're looking at, oh, we want to look at Coastside Fire and understand. Then we'll go to the LAFCO website. Oh, we don't have a report. We have a report on Pantera and that doesn't provide members of the public really that context. So it's just not a cycle.
Yeah, so what you're saying is the as needed was we don't have that.
Yeah, and we had staffing limitations at the time. There are now 2 LAFCO staff members. But for a long time, there was just 1. And so now we're kind of looking at doing some more MSRs and more in depth and kind of asking interesting questions to LAFCO at least for boundaries for services.
And since you have a history of doing this, so this is it countywide, statewide?
So LAFCO's, so San Mateo LAFCO is a countywide agency, but there is a LAFCO in every county.
Would you, being that you're in a position to give a review of an organization or district or a city, which I would not have any issue with myself, because I think anyone looking at it hoping can be a good thing. And like you said, the public can get more transparency as to what it is that the district does for the public. Would you say there are examples that have occurred where an MSR has then actually produced something positive for the district or the city or the public that we would be able to be privy to and look at and understand the impacts? Because I know it's not binding, but there's obviously an impact in what your study would wind up saying in the end.
Yeah, and there are numerous examples in the fire service, particularly, I'm sure many of the CAL FIRE, Coastside Fire staff are familiar with some of those because there have been a number of consolidations and mergers of districts in some of the more rural parts of the state, of fire districts, where they have had volunteer fire departments and they've done an MSR and say, hey, how can we actually provide service? Because this district doesn't have any employees. They don't have volunteers. They don't have the engines. So there is that kind of level of fire MSR that has been done within this county. As a more local example, a few years ago, there was an MSR for the Mosquito Vector Control District. That was recently after they had a scandal regarding some of their finances. And that MSR really brought in a lot of information about how the district could work on complying with financial regulations, how it could better have transparency, how it could work on budgeting. We've done a couple MSRs now for the Baltimore Police Protection Districts in the city area. That has addressed a lot of their finances. They've been working on trying to implement those recommendations, but it highlighted a number of challenges that they had. Recently did an MSR in the city of East Paul also, which included East Paul also sanitary district, and West Bay sanitary district. It actually led to a change in governance. So there can be a wide range of things. It can be that, hey, everything is going good. We LAFCO applauds everyone for kind of looking at these issues and thinking about transparency and thinking about your fiscal health. And, we have very few recommendations. Or it could be, hey, there's some high things we want to highlight, and this is an opportunity to take a look at that in some ways to strengthen those.
So let me add on a couple of comments, and I'm not going to ask you for answers. I'll just make a couple of observations, and I intend them to be constructive, that you might want to consider doing. Number one, when you send out the report, send a copy to the board or address it to the board. You're proposing answers to questions that are policy as well as operations. I'd like to make sure that I get a copy of it. Okay, number one, to do that type of it has been noted a couple times, we haven't heard from LAFCO over 17 years, although as a quick aside, I remember the meeting where we were trying to merge the 2 districts together that you referred to in the slide. It was a very controversial. This room was absolutely packed with very emotional comments, and it was a split decision to do it, but it's proven to be the right decision, and LAFCO approved it and brought it forward. So we're very appreciative for that. A lot of things that we've been able to accomplish were because of LAFCO's opinion and work on the issue. I think it would be helpful, and I'm just gonna ramble for a minute. I'd like to see what is the definition of a municipal service review? What precisely is that? What is the definition of it? What are you looking for? You know, it's just kind of a wide open statement. You can pack anything into it. I'd like to see really what that should be involved in. I'll cover that in just a comment. It does take a lot of time, or staff time, to prepare all this type of information. And whether that is valuable to us or not, remains to be seen. We'll see all that is. But as I read the request and the municipal service review, it almost like as LAFCO is becoming an auditing agency, it's becoming Price Waterhouse. And yet I'm not sure what the value to us is to do that type of thing, but that's my observation to do it. In the business of LAFCO publishing the municipal service review, it has some downsides to it. We're a confusing district in many respects. We have CAL FIRE here. We have our location between the relationship between the county fire and the Half Moon and the coast side is a little challenging. There are some units of leftover from the volunteers from the Half Moon Bay, and to provide another LAFCO analysis, I would just hazard a guess that 99% of the people here in the coast side had never heard of LAFCO. So if there's some kind of a publication coming out from LAFCO, that's a public document, is that going to be helpful or more confusing to the public? Now, I realize you have a job, and I'm not suggesting you don't do it. I'm just saying that it is a concern of doing that. A number of the items that I look at, and there's 28 items that you've asked in here, some of them are just terribly subjective. I mean, they just really could go any place. I mean, it's our relationship with the Harbor District. You know, frankly, we're not going to say anything, you know, negative about that. And there are members of on staff turnover. You know, what's good? If we have 2 people leave, is that good? What's 5? You know, who makes that kind of a judgment? Those are just very subjective kind of answers. Is somebody, I check it back that one said that when you ask questions, you gotta have a use of it before you ask the question. And I'm not sure what those value of those kind of subjective kind of answers, questions, if you will. You know, the value of some of the questions, for example, you asked for a copy of the CAL FIRE contract. I have no idea what you're gonna do with that. We're locked into that thing. We think it's a hell of a contract. It's been a lifesaver for the coast side to have that kind of a contract. We provided a copy to you. I have no idea what the heck you're gonna do with it. We can't change it. It's just, you know, another thing that, another example would be asking the age of stations. You know, the ages of this station, I think is 20 odd years at least there, but it's in great condition. It's and I've kept them to the chief and some of the things they've done. So age is a very subjective. What is the upkeep on it and so forth? As another example of what I find to be a little bit troubling. And again, I'm saying these hopefully in a constructive area. I'm not complaining. I recognize the job. The final comments I'd make is the whole questions you have or were in the report on the financial questions and so forth. And my bottom line on it is that all of that was written seemed to lack understanding of our financial information. The fact that we have a deficit is simply because we choose, if you will, not to take money out of a reserve fund at this time, because we're not sure how our new station is going to be. But some of the comments in there, I really thought, wow, that is really, what the heck are you trying to accomplish. And if some of that information was published, I think it would add unnecessary confusion to the public. And last comment I would make, I was very surprised that in all the things that you asked for, you didn't ask for an audit report. I mean, we've had unqualified audits now for decades, and it has all the financial information you could possibly imagine, but wasn't even one of the requests. Those again, this is the third time I'll say it, I'm saying this as a constructive thing to try to make it a little bit more palatable to us and to other people. Thank you.
Just as a response to that last question on the audits weren't asked for because those are on the website, so I can already receive those.
Fair enough. All right.
So.
Thank you. Any, whoops.
So how does this, we've had in the past, we've had the grand jury investigate us. And they published reports and some of them actually affected change. So that was very productive for the district. We welcome those grand jury reports. And they were productive. How is this going to be better than the grand jury reports or grand jury investigations of the district?
To compare this to the exact grand jury report you're referring to, and I haven't read.
There's been a number of them.
Yeah, and so it all just depends, what we're looking at here again is from a change standpoint, from a LAFCO view, right? If we're talking about, let's say, specific to boundary changes, let's say. There could then be, through an MSR and through that change in sphere of influence, if there was to be one, then that could effectuate a boundary change. If it's determined that the boundaries and the sphere of influence should stay the same, from a LAFCO viewpoint, then regarding boundaries only, then there may not be specific change coming out of an MSR. There might be recommendations that we have that could be similar to the grand jury, that could not be similar. It depends on what the issue is that we're looking at. And there is a specific code under state law that MSRs and sphere of influences look at certain areas within them, and we have criteria that's outlined by state law that specifies that. So within each of those areas, we could have recommendations, or again, it could be that, there is a clean bill of health and that we don't have any additional questions for the district, and that we have very few recommendations on these issues.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation this afternoon. We look forward to working with you. We obviously will prepare the report and then we will have a final document that will satisfy both of us.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Very good. Thank you very much.
President Burke, just one additional item on that. Staff recommendation was just 2 members of the board who would to be identified to review the documentation. Two members of the board to review the documentation before it's submitted.
I will volunteer. Do we have any other volunteers? Myself and Cynthia will volunteer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Great. Okay, now back to the. All right. Thank you. Review, item B, continuing business review and discuss coastside fire protection district strategic business plan. Let me just,
We still take it out there.
somehow I've lost control. Let me just remind you that at a last board meeting, I reflected upon, Patrick and I were at the California Special Districts meeting, and I had an occasion to sit with some people who were discussing strategic plan, and frankly had very little knowledge of it. And the group I'm talking about was just 5 people. This was not a big, long, long, but it did trigger me to think that, gee, it's about time that we might want to think again about the strategic plan. This is not an action item on our agenda today, but what I would like to ask the board to focus on either now, and by the way, I'd like to ask this on the agenda next month for an action item. But I would like to ask the board to just take a look at the mission, vision, and value portion of this. And even if you have, this is kind of the foundation of the action plans that we have going forward. And the mission and action and values was a subject of great controversy again in the past, like a lot of things did. But it is the basic of whatever we're going to do in terms of actions or non-actions, well, either way you want to do it. And I would just ask the board members either today, if you have any thoughts, or as a notice that I'd like to ask your input next month as we actually go through it. And add, because I have frankly a couple of action items that I would like to add and change, and there are a couple of action items here that have actually been completed and need to be redistributed, if you will. So that is the only message I have for today, is if you have anything on the mission, vision, and value to speak of today, and or think about it until next month. And then at next month, we'll have we'll have action on the action plans. Any comments?
The initiatives to be updated, it's very simple, the ones that currently exist.
Excuse me?
On the initiatives at the second page
Yes,
that you just mentioned.
Yes.
That could be updated.
yes.
It's very simple. We could do that now.
Well, they're not an action item today,
Okay,
so we'll have to do it next. But you're right, I mean, we have to do it. And also, as I said, I think there might be some things that might be appropriate to add on there. Okay, moving on. Where are, item B. Review and discuss, no, that's been, I believe, item B has been removed from the on my,
Yeah, 7B. Yeah, I believe we wanted to remove that item from the agenda.
excuse me?
We wanted to move that item to next month.
Yes, item B, tab 5, review and discuss the buy-in for the COSIDE search standing operating procedure has been moved to next month. Okay, so that is over. So we're now moving on to Board of Directors report. The finance report is number 1. Again, there was not a finance committee meeting this month. The spreadsheet showing our expenses and revenue for the first 3 months is available, public document. I just make a couple of quick things that the balance in San Mateo County is $4.5 million. Reserves for LAFCO, which is primarily in reserve for new Station 44, is some 16 million. Class has $1.5 million in reserve. PAS is $4 million, if you will, and the general reserve being held by San Mateo is $2 million. We've paid our annual PAS retirement for prior employees has been paid for the year. We have not made any payments on the CAL FIRE contract as of right now, so the totals are really kind of misleading. But basically, I see nothing that's inconsistent or incorrect in the financial report. Anything, PB, did you have?
No.
Any comments? Moving on. Volunteer committee report, Director Cockrell, put the hand up.
Again, just to reiterate what we experienced earlier in this meeting, to have our local volunteers go through the program. And I didn't want to give the credit, of course, to Chief Armstrong, who brought it to our attention initially. It was completely his baby, his thought, his process, and obviously with Chief Cox with us as well, to get through that entire process and actually see it wind up being the vision that he had as well. You know, which is we now have 2 employees on the coast side working with CAL FIRE as medics, so that's fantastic. Other than that,
KB?
Well, yeah, it's not for me, volunteers, the full-time employees of CAL FIRE, by extension, district.
I mean, we look forward to hopefully more individuals being part of this.
I had a cup of coffee over at Station 41 and Jeremy happened to be there. And he was there in his capacity as working for AMR. So the AMR ambulance was sitting there and he was in there with a bunch of us sitting there having coffee. And of course, I assured him that he mentioned something to work for CAL FIRE. Assured him the chances were all certain to be assigned to Honduras. But it worked out differently than that. He was prepared for it. He was, oh, here's where I'll go where I go.
Well, again, I think it's fantastic and unique. I speak for everyone hopefully on the board. That's just we're
Yeah, and he didn't know he was coming here at that time. He just
We're
knew,
just thinking on service.
he just knew he was getting on the Cal Fire.
You know, very positive, no question, absolutely great. Although I can see down the road, it's gonna be kind of interesting, perhaps when a contract is renewed, who supplies the paramedics? Who trains them and supplies them? I don't have the answer to that, but I suspect it will be a question that will come up sometime in the future. And I'm sure Cal Fire has an answer to it, right? Yeah, okay. Anything else? Okay. Land and Structures Committee Report, Director McKinney, Director Cheryl,
Chief Silva.
Chief Silva.
Yeah, so, station 44, 90% construction docks will be completed, second week in November. They anticipate 100% completion, mid-December for the station 44 plans and construction docks. Temp facility plans are in progress and, we're targeting submittal by end of the month for the temporary facility. So they target the end of the month for hopefully getting that submitted to the county and getting approval as quick as possible. I'm working on a lease for mobile modular at this time to lease, and we've designed the temporary station, so we're should be able to bring that by next month of what that'll look like and get approval to lease that. And then Station 41 South Lot permits are still pending, and Sean Rose will bring approval and design authorization to the board the next board meeting.
Very good.
So I have.
Thank you. Anything else? Questions?
Quick question, to remind me, because it's not in front of my head, is the cost of the temp facility, which will, if I'm not wrong, go on for about 3 years or
Yeah, approximately.
2.5 years. Is that within the scope of the number for the overall budget, or is it separate?
I believe it was the scope, right?
Yeah, it's all coming out of the Station 44.
Vegetation Management Committee, Director Cockrell, Director Hannah.
No, we-
No report.
No report. Special District Association, Director Hannah.
Also no report.
No report. ALSJPA Liaison Report, I have had no meetings. There is some meetings going on with the county at a high level, but I have not been involved, have not been a committee meeting. Emergency Preparedness Report, I don't know whether it's, any report? No report?
Chief Cox, did the EM reach out to you?
They did not know I didn't get anything like that.
No report. Cert report, Director Cheryl.
The only thing we have to report this month is that because it's Pumpkin Festival, so everybody was involved in some way with that. Is we do have fall cert starting on the 30th of October. We're getting everything lined up right now. We have 39 confirmed new certs who will be trained. Our ideal number is 35 per session, so we've still got a little wiggle room there if anybody needs to drop out at the last minute. But we're hoping to train 35 new certs over 4 sessions on the 30th of October, the 2nd, 6th, and 9th of November, and 9th is training day and graduation. On that day, we will have all 39 certs plus 35 or so existing certs who come to support their training success and to refresh their own skills. So it's a big day here at Fire Station 40, on November 9th. And again, we are very grateful to Fire Station 40 and the training office and Chief Cox and Silva and everybody else here for allowing us to use this wonderful facility for this big training, which we do twice a year.
Thank you, Cynthia. Any questions? Okay. Attorney's report,
Nothing.
no report. Fire Marshal's report.
So be brief, for the month of September, 32 plan reviews, 20 inspections out in the field. We hosted a fire prevention officer meeting, which happens once a month. That includes all the agencies within the county and their respective deputy fire marshals. And we were out at Pumpkin Festival, walking around, making sure everyone was safe, everything was being maintained, and everything looked good. Great weather. Lots of people.
We'll do a report. The question.
I had a question, maybe advice to Patrick as well. Or you, how many apparatus were staffed during the Pumpkin Festival?
How many what, Jaden?
How many apparatus were
Oh.
staffed?
Oh.
You have a number? You there?
There's 5 extra. Yeah.
5 extra, and they're all from here, or they came from someplace
There
there?
was 2 Type 3 engines that were state funded that were here. We
Okay.
staffed up 140, engine 640 and engine 644. And the ERV was also out there, if we want to count that as an apparatus with Chief Lord and John Lewis as well.
Okay.
And then we had all 3 engines still on the first still.
Normal, no. It appeared to me, just from looking at a couple of things, that had rather enhanced staffing.
Yeah, we had
I assume the volunteers staff 140, I don't.
Yep.
That was my assumption.
Yep.
And how many other apparatus did the volunteers staff?
I think we had some of them, I think we put a person on, well, there was a first aid booth that was one of them, but I think we put individual volunteers on, I think 640 had one, and I think. Actually, 140 was staffed with a volunteer and paid.
Oh, really?
Captain Chubb was on it with ALS as a paramedic, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, I'm asking the question, if anyone noticed in this room, what, I've heard estimates before of how many people come to this weekend. Was there any number that's been thrown out for this year?
How many people?
How many individuals show up to the coast side Half Moon Bay Pumpkin Fest weekend?
So the loose number I heard was somewhere between 50 to 70,000, but I have a follow-up meeting, next week with the city, so I can probably bring that to you next week.
The city told me yesterday that they actually had somebody here tracking cellular devices somehow, so they should have a very accurate number of how many people were in there, so that'll be interesting to see, but there was some way to track it via cell phones, and pretty much every person has a cell phone, so it'll be interesting to see the number. He was guessing 30, but these are just all speculations, and then some people said 100 and some people said 50, so it'll be interesting to see what the actual number comes out to be.
Saturday was much busier than Sunday.
Yeah, the paper said less than last year. So-
Yeah,
I just want to say thank you. It was beautifully run and everything the fire services did to make it a huge success for the community. It was just everything that was needed was there. All the services were in place. You were so well prepared. And yet it was very low key. There was not everyone was there to have a great time and be supportive in that. And it was a great community effort. So thank you.
I can attest to the fact that there were thousands of dogs there as well.
Oh, okay.
Increasing number as I tripped over the leashes.
Oh.
You said the leashes, they be.
Okay, enough of that. Fire chief's report. Chief
All right,
Parks.
thank you. I'm gonna embarrass one more person. If Chief Anderson can come stand up front real quick, please. Just want to announce Chief Wilson, and I'm sure you saw this email, sent out a promotion announcement for the Battalion 10C position. This is the position that was vacated by Ryan West, who is now a division chief on the county fire side. Chief Wilson, effective on Monday, October 14th, 2024, announced Chief Rob Anderson beginning the capacity and role of Battalion Chief for Coastside Fire Protection District. Chief Anderson began his fire career in 2005 with the North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District. He worked in a number of units, including Nevada Yuba Placer Cal Fire Unit, in Truckee at the casino location, as well as working at Washington Ridge Conservation Camp running the hand crew. He began working in CZU in 2018 at the Belmont Fire Station for County Fire, and in 2022 transferred to the Coastside Fire Station 41. Rob's been an integral part of the development of the county-wide interagency truck program. He is the lead cadre for the San Mateo County Fire Truck Academy. He's played a key role in fostering relationships with neighboring jurisdictions, allowing what was an internal truck program and making it a countywide standard for truck operations. It's his leadership in that, as well as the company officer operations throughout the county, have been important, as well as his certification as one of the few sea fallers. And what that is for falling large trees. He is certified to fall very large trees. He is also serves as the local 2881 vacation coordinator for the division, and helps implement the scheduling and overtime policies for the staff. He's a member of the San Mateo Division Apparatus and Equipment Committee contributes the design of new apparatus and establishes standards for the equipment that we use. He has an associate's degree in fire technology through Sierra College. And when he's not here working, he enjoys time with his wife, Jacqueline, and their daughters, Charlotte and Annabelle. They ski at least 5 days a week and also enjoy snowmobiling, mountain biking, and spending time with the lakes and rivers. Rob's been a huge asset for us as a captain, and we're very proud of him being battalion chief now too.
Rob, congratulations. Continued success.
Thank you.
Continued success. Chief?
All right, just a few more things. The ALS JPA, we had a meeting yesterday with some of the member agencies, staff did, not an elected officials meeting. Where the letter that the district sent back in response to the request for contribution was shared to daylight what the district's position is as far as the ALS dispatch component. No further updates from that, just a conversation between agencies about receiving that letter and the responses. We're continuing to work with Montero Water on a hydrant agreement. We met again 2 weeks ago. I hope to have something more final to bring back to the board in the near future, but a productive meeting to try to work out some of the last points. The agreement that we have in place with Fisher and Fisher to complete the CalPERS study is in full motion. We should have a draft for the board as well as a presentation from Fisher and Fisher regarding COSIDE's liability for CalPERS at the November meeting. So that should be coming from the board. We did not execute any new agreements this month, so no new agreements have been entered into. And we did start the transition for the new IT provider. We had initial kickoff meeting for the mobile data terminal system. The temporary plan, or not just temporary, the plan is right now to have them fully operational by December 1 as we transition the old IT coordinator, and they are working well together. There's still a tentative plan that is coming into place for a fall volunteer fire academy starting in November. I believe they will graduate in March or April. As far as operations and significant incidents are concerned, we did have one small structure fire. I believe that was up in the Montero area. There was a 4-acre grass fire up off Highway 92, as well as an encampment fire. And there was quite a bit of increased calls for service over the last few weeks, just from the nice weather and the number of people visiting the coast. As far as facilities are concerned, Chief Silva hit on Station 44 in the south lot. I'm going to check off the insulation project now that it's complete, as well as the bathrooms here at Station 40 as well. And I do know the painting at the exterior of Station 41 was completed as well for the exposed wood. Good news on apparatus. Our final Type 1 engine 44, went into production last week. 2.5 years after we placed the order. So I believe it's a 4-month build time. After that, we'll go through, Captain Mingstein and Chief West will fly back out to an inspection before we accept delivery of it. And then they will outfit the engine with the tools and equipment. The Type 3 engine is not in production yet, so they're still having a supply issue with the international chassis. So when that does, we should get notified. The old engine 140 has been sent to auction. Captain Mingstein has been chasing pink slip issues because it was registered to the Old Point Montero Fire District. So the first thing we had to do was transfer the title before we could actually get it to auction, but that's in progress. And we did receive sealed bids for the old Utility 41. That was the old red pickup that we had. We did get 2 bids for that, so we have a highest bidder to sell that piece of apparatus. One other item that we should daylight is the district did receive the written ISO rating for the district. We will bring that to the board for review next month at the November meeting. There's no change in rating, but it does give you a breakdown of our scoring and how we scored as far as ILS is concerned. The final thing I have is board meeting dates for November and December. They both fall either on the day before Thanksgiving or Christmas Day. So the staff is recommending a special meeting on November 20th and a special meeting on December 18th in place of regular meetings for the months.
You send out a memo on that, chief.
Sure.
Please,
I understand you say November 20th and December 18th.
Yep.
Anything else?
That's it.
Chief Wilson?
Just one thing for the board, I would like to thank you guys for, operating a, progressive approach for coast side. I've been able to refer a lot of local government agencies in Santa Cruz County to come up and look at, construction documents, work with Chief Silva. There's a lot of agencies down there that have, failing infrastructure or old infrastructure that they're looking at improving. And, they've been looking at coast side as an example, so thank you.
Right. Anything else, chief?
No.
By the way, that Friday report is, I'm not sure, chief, that comes out, that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Keeps us up to date, very well done. I have one question, a dumb question, on the fire engines, that we placed an order 2.5 years ago. Is the specifications, what we gave them 2.5 years ago, gonna be in what we get
Yes,
this year?
yes,
Holy smoke.
yeah, the build times are incredible at the moment.
Geez, that just seems, I mean, certainly the technology and something's changed in 2.5 years.
Yeah, there is a small, amount of contingency money in there. So if there are small changes, like if lights change or if there's a certain device on there, we can pull from that money that's built into the contract, but overall the specification stays.
Our specifications, you mean,
They're unique but not outlandish. Every agency, has their own bell or whistle or hose pull or discharge or something specific that they want. These are considered custom apparatus as versus the stock apparatus. The thing that it does allow us is it just allows us to be consistent. So all of our frontline apparatus are identical, our reserve apparatus are fairly similar. It's a nice position to be in.
Any questions, comments? Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you. We are here.